Artificial intelligence.
Hey, hello everybody. This is Alex from the AI Executive podcast. I'm having today with me one of my very, very good friends and very, very successful AI executive, Jenna Niven, managing director in RGA. She's one of the most rare people I ever met. She combines qualities of both a programmer and a creative artistic person. So this is like a unicorn we're having today. And thank you so much, Jenna, for being with us.
No worries, no problem.
Jenna, can you please tell us a bit about yourself?
Sure. So I work at RGA in the New York office, and I'm a group creative director there. I originally started in the visual design discipline, but really I work now across just everything creative and technology. So my background is basically I did a design degree at university. And then when I left uni, I actually got a job as a software engineer. And I did that for about 4 years, doing front-end and back-end development. But then I realized that I just wasn't very good at it. So I went back to design and then did that for another sort of 12 years. And maybe like 6 years ago, I started to get back into my programming days, programming mindset, and then started to really investigate what was happening with artificial intelligence. I think then IBM was doing a really good job at explaining kind of what the capabilities are, or potentially what were going to be the capabilities. Maybe the technology wasn't quite there yet, but they were very good at explaining it to people like me who kind of have a programming background, but really looking for those use cases to use in a creative space. So then I came across, I was living in Sydney at the time, came across to New York and for a conference and met the team here at RGA. And then I've been here ever since. So that was 4 years ago now. And here basically what I do is I focus on designing with data, and that obviously means using machine learning and other AI capabilities to build products and services.
Oh my gosh, that's such like an amazing career. Congrats for that. Can you tell us a bit about your RGA as a company, as a whole?
Sure. I'm just going to turn my Slack off so it's not, you don't get that.
No worries, it's okay. It's like the common noise that everybody knows.
Hang on. Let me turn that off.
They IPO'd recently. It was a good fun. It was just around my office.
Oh, really? That would have been cool.
Yeah, they were giving all the people like ice creams and like.
Oh, that would have been fun. Sorry, what was your question?
So RGA, what's RGA doing? Tell us a bit about your company, RGA, and how it is involved in the AI space.
Yeah, so RGA is traditionally a design agency, I would probably say. That's probably the best way to describe it. But in the last sort of 10 years, we've morphed into having three kind of distinct disciplines within the agency. One being marketing transformation, which is essentially advertising campaigns, marketings, comms, all of that sort of stuff. Experience transformation, which speaks to the product service work. So, for example, I think the most well-known thing that we did was the Nike ecosystem. So, the Fuel Band, the Nike Watch, the partnership with Apple, and lots of other things that connect to the Nike ecosystem. And then the last one is business transformation. And that's a relatively new practice, but that is really taking a consultancy look at things. So understanding organizational change, brand innovation, brand transformation. So coming at it from like a more of a consultancy angle. And you see that basically reversed with companies like Deloitte and Accenture purchasing these creative agencies. And we've essentially just done that, reversed. So we've done that on the inside. And the three disciplines really work together to do anything really for clients. So it could be as simple as an advertising campaign, or it could be as complex as a complete creation of a new product, service and brand. So there's a very sort of wide variety of work and a very wide variety of clients as well. It's very exciting.
Wow, that's super, super beautiful. And I have to say that you have one of the most beautiful offices ever in the whole of New York.
It is pretty cool.
Super cool. Yeah, like full of design and art. And it's like, yeah, it's so awesome. It's like your founder is so focused on design and design thinking. And you also embellish this way of thinking. And I super love it. Yeah. So, Jenna, tell us a bit about your experiences with building AI. Like, if you can tell us about the examples you built and what happened, and give us like a walkthrough of how of some things that you built.
So I think I've always prototyped things using third-party APIs. That's probably over the last sort of 4 or 5 years, kind of the way that I've been doing things. And then 2 years ago, we actually won a pitch which incorporated a platform idea that was basically a product that was built on artificial intelligence. So it was a product that couldn't necessarily have been created before without some AI capabilities. So that was basically the first foray into a commercially viable product using AI. So that was sort of a big step for us and a big learning curve, in the sense that we had to figure out what was the best way to build it, how we were going to build it, how we were going to collect the training data, and then how we were going to put it all together and surface that to the client and the end user. So really, really cool project. And that's when obviously I met you, Alex, during that project as well. And the way that we sort of went about it was having a discovery phase in the upfront, where what we did was look at different data sources and essentially the problem that we're trying to solve, identifying what methods would be best to solve that problem, whether that was a classification issue or a regression issue. And really just testing and playing around with that. And we built sort of these small models and were able to test them and get pretty good accuracy results from there. So we moved into the next stage, which was basically creating a scalable or a commercial version of the product. And that involved basically taking a huge amount of data and then training the model based on the structure that we outlined in the discovery phase, and then starting to tweak the parameters to get it to a higher accuracy level. And then at every phase during that project as well, we would add a level of complexity. So whether that is an additional source of data or a different type of data, maybe that's moving into images rather than just text or emojis, to make it more complex, but keep the accuracy at the same time.
So can you tell about what was this project? What was the value you were trying to create? Can you give some details?
Yeah. So basically that was...
because that's what everybody is struggling. Like, okay, everybody loves AI. Some people actually can build it, but how can I monetize? How can I create value for my customer? And you're in such a unique position that you talk with all the customers all day and you know what they need. So what was this project? And then we can say how can we think about creating value with AI? But what was this project about? So, as an example.
So basically, I'll maybe keep it generic, but it was a cruise line. And basically they came to us and said, we need to increase or we need to acquire net new cruises. We needed 1 million in the next year. So how do we get people that don't necessarily consider a cruise in their vacation consideration set to look at a cruise as one of their options, rather than just going for an all-inclusive resort. And a little bit of digging into that, we found that the people that don't necessarily go on a cruise have a particular mindset around they don't think cruising is for them. They do have a very strong perception of what a cruise would be and the type of people that would go on a cruise, and they just don't necessarily resonate with that. They don't think that is their type of fun. So the question really became, how do we start to talk to these people in the way that would resonate with them? How do we actually start to talk to them and tell them that the stuff that you can do on a cruise is actually going to be fun for you? And that led to an additional question, which is, well, what is the definition of fun? Because fun for me might be completely different to fun for you. So obviously we don't want to necessarily be served the same message or do the same things on a cruise. But fundamentally, how do we figure out what your unique definition of fun is? So it's really a hyper-personalization at scale issue. So how do we learn more about each individual, and then able to use that data to, make recommendations about what type of cruise, make recommendations about what to do on the ship, or even down to sort of the way that you service them in a travel agent. Whether they would be more likely to convert if they had more of a hands-off or hands-on approach. So really understanding who your customers are at a deeper level, at a more behavioural level, rather than predicting what they would do based on someone else's behaviour. So really, big question, put simply, is how do we define a unique person's definition of fun? And so that was a super interesting question that obviously led us to a lot of behavioural psychology and psychology in general, and understanding how people actually define fun and what is their version of fun. And basically it comes back down to the big five from a psychology perspective. So that is the openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. So depending on your makeup of those 5 traits is a very good indicator of what type of fun you would like. And type of fun being, whether you're, preferring to go out on a ski tour with a whole bunch of people, or whether you would prefer to go on a wine tour one-on-one with a wine connoisseur. So basically these traits can tell us a lot about a person and help us decide or figure out what their type of fun is. So then I guess the next step would be, well, how do we actually figure out what those big 5 attributes are for each individual, because everyone's going to be different. And then it was good timing. There was a few research reports that had come out around a correlation between what you post on social and your big 5 personality. And when you think about it, it's pretty obvious, what you post on social media can be quite indicative of your personality, whether you're someone that posts a lot of emojis and a lot of emotional content and a lot of really, deep stuff on Facebook or Instagram, or are you one of those people that is really just a little bit more introverted, posting a lot of pictures of maybe outdoors or art galleries or that sort of thing. So it's really very much a strong indicator of your big 5 based on these research reports. And then we did our own small sample research project where we actually found that there is a strong correlation between what you post on social and your big 5. So it was kind of a validation for us. The one question that we had was, when we were diving a little bit deeper into the data, is that, well, people don't necessarily just communicate with text anymore, and that's what these research projects were very much focused on. So what words were you using to describe, an image or what you were doing at that particular time? And we know that the majority of social posts actually include either images or emojis. So then we needed to go back and figure out how we were going to include sort of 2 additional features into the model to improve the accuracy of our prediction. So that's when we came up with the 3 different models. So we had the text model, we had the emoji model, and then we had the image model that each ran a prediction separately and then came together with a sort of a boosting layer to spit out the final prediction of your big five. And then that big five was then mapped to particular cruise personas that we worked with client on creating. So these are basically people or types of people that you would normally find on board a ship. And then you were essentially a distribution of those personas. And then obviously those personas then matched to recommendations of, products, activities, what have you. So really the use case is how do we actually start to hyper-personalize interactions at scale? And then the way that we did that was using AI to analyze data, social data, to understand and make a prediction of that particular consumer about what they would want and need and like.
All right, that's so beautiful what you said, and thank you so much for all your description. It's a common question like that. Let's use AI for this, AI for that. The most important problem is to start with the customer. What are their needs? And their needs is always like more growth, more value creation. And if you start with these questions, how can I create growth? How can I create more value for the customer? As in your example, how can I increase the interaction and the personalization of the packages that we offer during the cruise? That's an amazing way to start your AI journey instead of like, I'm going to build the AI for this. It has to start and end with creating value for somebody else, correct?
Exactly.
At scale.
Yeah. And it could be the client itself, could be the organization. Another project that we recently worked on was creating a production tool for a technology company to basically classify documents using a machine learning model. So what we did was we took a really, really large sum of the documents that they had currently, and we used unsupervised learning to basically create a topic model. And now instead of when they're uploading these documents to their ecosystem internally, instead of someone having to read the document and then manually tag the document, which would take about, I think they were saying about 10, 15 minutes each, so per document, it now obviously classifies it in, a few seconds. So that from an internal organization perspective is very valuable when you're looking at increasing efficiencies. So there could be a external consumer-facing product, or it even could be like an internal tool to increase efficiencies within the organization.
Yes, this is also very awesome what you just said. Like most of the people think about AI like replacing a person, whereas it's very, very important to replace a task.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know if AI is still is yet there to be able to replace a person completely, but we can certainly replace tasks which are tedious. Like most of the people are afraid of AI is going to take our jobs, but actually it's going to take the jobs that nobody wants to do right now, correct?
Exactly. Yeah, and I think like as creatives as well, I think we tend to look at AI as maybe as more of an adversary, but essentially it's going to be doing just that for creatives as well. So taking away the things that you don't necessarily want to do. Do you really want to sit there for 5 hours and deep etch an image, or would you rather think about maybe the concept behind it, or the application of whatever you're creating, or maybe improving it? So there's a lot more that we can do if we are alleviated of some of the menial tasks and time-consuming tasks that we don't necessarily even want to do. And when it comes to sort of producing something creative, and I say that in air quotes, it's really just about scale. It's not necessarily about quality. So if I'm, for example, using some sort of generative adversarial network to create a logo, for example, it's not necessarily going to produce the final thing, spit it out and it's done. It's basically a way for us to produce variations at scale. So we iterate across infinite amounts of variations that we can then take and review from a human perspective in terms of, does it meet the brief, or does it does it resonate with a person? So I think definitely the augmented approach is the way that I see it going, and I know here at RGA that's definitely kind of the approach behind majority of products and services that we build based on AI. It's not necessarily going to totally replace someone. It's more of an augmentation, and how do we make humans smarter and more effective and more efficient.
That's awesome, because everybody cries unemployment problems, and you actually shout like freedom, augmentation. And this is, I totally agree with you. This is probably how it's going to play, rather than who wants to be a farmer, a century ago? Like, it's going to take away the farmer jobs.
Yeah, I'm reading a really interesting book at the moment. It's called Life 3.0. I can't remember who the author is, but there's
Max Tegmark, from MIT.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a really good book, and the chapter that I'm on at the moment is really about what's going to happen to the workforce as AI becomes closer and closer to AGI. Whether it makes it there or not, I'm not sure, but yeah, I think that there's different positions on that. You've got some people who are basically thinking about what are we going to do when we're basically useless. So humans don't necessarily have purpose in the sense that we would go to work every day to produce something to make money to live. We would be more of a ladies of leisure, I think you would probably say. And that's basically going back to Greek days, so which is a really interesting thought. So, how did they survive? They didn't necessarily work, but they seemed to survive fine. So, yeah, I don't know. That was a bit of a tangent, but...
So what's your opinion on this now that you got this tangent? What's your opinion on the universal basic income? Because it's going to become very, very, very state of the art and very contemporary now, especially with the elections. There is one candidate that is promoting it a lot. So what's your opinion on that? What will happen? If everybody gets paid to not work.
I'm all about universal basic income, even without AI coming and making a lot of jobs redundant. I think that, I think if you look at it from the perspective of it's very similar to reducing tax on someone and increasing tax on another. So essentially reverse taxing someone who isn't necessarily working. And I think that, there's circumstances behind why some people don't work or can't work, or are in the position where they are working for a really, really minimum wage. And it's not necessarily all that person's fault. It might be environmental or social issues that that lead them there. So I feel like a universal basic income can just help alleviate some of the stress on sort of the lower socioeconomic groups of people out there. But aside from that, I'm all for progress. I was just listening to a podcast the other day. I think it was Joe Rogan, and he and another woman were talking about how they're absolutely terrified of the facial recognition devices that have been banned from San Fran. And I think they were talking about there's a particular city in Canada that is basically going to be the first sort of digitized, innovative city, and they were, just basically fear-mongering around, I wouldn't want my face, in a database where everyone can track me and blah, blah, blah. I just think it's a bit ridiculous in the sense that...
Your face is already in the database, yes? It's called Facebook.
Yeah, that's true. You've already put it there yourself. But, I think to make progress, we have to develop, and I think we have to move forward and we have to accept certain technologies. And I feel like someone who sits there and says, I don't want the government having my data, or why would I have, someone, a camera on the street looking at my face, is basically the equivalent of someone saying back in the day, oh, why would I want an email address? Because, someone would be able to look at all of my emails, or, I don't want a phone line because what if someone taps my phone line? Or, I think it's a very backwards way of thinking. And I think obviously there needs to be ethical guidelines in place to protect people. But I don't think that, we should be stagnating progress because of fear-mongering from people who don't necessarily understand the technology and the purpose. Because I think at the end of the day, as much as the news really focuses on all of the bad stuff that AI could do, nobody necessarily is there reporting on all of the good stuff, which, in my opinion, is going to be pretty incredible. You can imagine a world in which we maybe eradicate some forms of cancer, and if we could, eradicate some forms of cancer, and I have to sacrifice maybe my face being seen on a street camera and then stored in a database, I would totally make that. I would totally make that bet. So yeah, it's just I think a lot of fear mongering, and I feel like we need to start embracing the technology for the positives that it could do, rather than focusing on all of the bad stuff.
Yep, I totally agree with you. You are one of the positive thinkers, and I really believe that technology eventually creates a positive force for society, and this is the way forward. You're a big advocate of diversity, especially in tech, and in general. Like, can you tell us a bit about it if you can?
Yeah. So I think that it's no surprise that just in tech in general, there's a low representation of women, and I think that artificial intelligence or machine learning is even lower. And I saw an email the other day, sort of a call for arms for women in artificial intelligence and machine learning to kind of come forward and join some of these groups that are out there. It's super important that not necessarily just in general, but in gender, but in all forms of diversity, that we have a really broad representation of people from different backgrounds, from different races, different sexualities, anything contributing to the things that we build with AI capabilities. And that is because a lot of the time we either build products and services that are built on existing, logic that may just automatically have inherent bias in it. And, if we just replicate that without a diverse team of people looking at that, we might not necessarily pick it up, and then it's reinforced and exacerbated by AI. And even developing new products and services, trying to understand beyond your own echo chamber what problems do need to be solved and how they could be solved. So one of the projects that we're working on at the moment is definitely in that vein. And what we're doing is using AI to basically to help underrepresented journalists. So I think that that this particular piece of technology actually wouldn't have been possible without AI. So again, it's kind of one of those examples of, you can focus on how artificial intelligence may be creating echo chambers, or I don't know, shit like that. But then products and services that actually do good are being built with products or with capabilities. So I'm sorry, I was got lost a bit there because I was looking outside the ring because I think someone was.
So no worries. Yeah, I mean, it's totally true what you say. Like people, we are afraid of the data and the biases, and AI is going to overrepresent those or learn from those and repeat them. But at the same time, we can use AI on the opposite side, like be able to remove the current biases of our society and use AI to actually increase the diversity. And this is one of the secrets for everybody building teams of whatever type, AI or not. Increase the diversity, like age, sex, ethnicity, whatever you do, is going to create an amazing amalgam of people that is going to lead you to your success. This is one of my biggest secrets, and everybody, and including my mentors, have been telling me that. In diversity is the key to everything.
Yeah, nailed it. That was perfect. What you just said.
Awesome. So if somebody wants to if somebody wants to enter the arena of AI and they want to avoid crucial mistakes, what would be these mistakes to your experience? Because we both know that every mistake in the space can cause you lots of pain and money. So what would be your advice on avoiding mistakes when you develop AI products?
I think that the main one is from the project that you and I worked on together, and that was really start from a simple place. So you don't necessarily need to bring out the big guns in terms of like really sophisticated AI models or machine learning models right from the beginning. If you can solve the problem in a more traditional data science way. I think by starting small and getting, quick results and building the proof of concept at scale, you can then start to improve or optimize the results based on that with more and more sophisticated models, or adding more features, or adding, more variety to the data, or whatever it may be. But I think a definite learning was, start small, get those fast wins, and then start to build the product from there.
All right, that's awesome. That's a gold nugget, everybody. Just listen to that. Like, I've done these mistakes so many times, and I've built so many complex stuff which nobody actually wanted, or the client didn't want it a different deployment scenario. So be very, very, very careful. Like, start small and then conquer the world. Do not conquer the world day one.
Mm-hmm.
What's your opinion on the future of AI? And describe me what you think AI will be 10 years from now in your space.
So I think that, I think it's a really tough question to answer. Sort of 10 years is quite a long time, considering the amount of progress that we've made in the last couple of years. So I think, short term, we'll see a lot of improvement in the current capabilities that we've got. So improvement on image recognition, improvement on natural language processing, and being able to use those models for supplementary or additional tasks. So essentially transfer learning. I think that that's going to be a really interesting space. With the concerns around, how much data you would need to actually build a model and train it on one specific task from scratch. It might help sort of democratize AI. And specifically because you see all of these really big companies like your Googles and your Facebooks releasing these models and open sourcing these models. I think it's awesome. And it's, I think the way that we're going to keep progressing and keep improving. And then I think essentially what will happen is we get to a point where we're not necessarily making huge breakthroughs in the type of technology. So there wouldn't be necessarily like a new, version of an ImageNet or something like that. But it's basically the innovation will come in the way that we use those capabilities. So how we actually put them together in really innovative ways. It's the same way, I guess, what we did with the internet, The internet was one invention, but the real value of the internet came when people started using it, for particular purposes in a creative way. So whether that was, the invention of e-commerce or the invention of email, it was those sort of products that were built on top of the initial technology, which really made huge difference in our lives. So I feel like, long term, that's probably where it's going to get interesting is those applications. And that, from my perspective anyway, is where the creatives become really valuable. So as a creative, you're uniquely positioned to understand a user's need and understand the technologies and being able to think about them in a way that's not necessarily linear or logical and put them together in different ways to produce product, service, campaigns, whatever, businesses that haven't been done before.
Awesome. I'm going to ask you some questions, and I want you to give me a date. Okay?
Okay.
Universal basic income for everybody.
I'm going to say 5 years.
Your job is being replaced by an AI.
As in me as a creative?
Completely, yes.
Oh, I think I'm going to go like 20.
20?
Yeah.
20 years from now.
Yep.
2039.
I think creativity is going to be a tough one to crack.
Okay. Artificial general intelligence. Give me the date.
Oh, well, it would have to be before the I think we would need AGI before we were able to crack creativity being replaced. So I would say, let's say 19 years. 19. So we'll go AGI 19 years, and then a year after that, we'll see creativity being replaced.
All right, 2039 then. Okay. RGA becoming a totally AI organization. In terms of like, there's no people, just AI.
I would say, I think it would, happen really quickly after AGI. So if we say AGI is 19 years, creativity is 20, then I think full automation of an advertising agency would be like, 21, 22 years.
Okay, so you're actually a believer of singularity, correct?
Well, I think singularity has a dirty name. I think that I believe in the fact that we would be able to, with obviously quantum computing, being able to replicate a human brain to the extent that it would be able to learn on its own and not necessarily just do one specific task, but do multiple specific tasks at the level or better than a human. So that, in that sense, I believe, in the sense that it has a conscience and it has, motivations beyond what we've programmed it to do. I don't necessarily believe in that. And I think that is probably, I would say that's actually even different to AGI. I would say that AGI is what I just said, basically being able to do any task possible, being able to learn from its mistakes and learn what it doesn't know. But at the end of the day, that's still programmed by us. That the goals that we set are still set by humans. The parameters that we set are still set by humans, to a certain extent, obviously. But yeah, in terms of it having going full sci-fi on us, I don't necessarily see that in the future.
Okay, 2039. All right, let's see.
If I'm right, do we have bets on this? Do we have money on this?
I mean, they're ongoing. Like there are people 2029, 2039. I'm somewhere between 20 for being able to have a friend on your mobile phone. I would be 2027, 2029 there. And then AGI and taking over and automating everything around your time. And this is probably underestimated because we cannot really understand exponential. Yeah. But there is a bet. There is a bet, and we will place it soon. So if somebody wants to reach out and talk with you, discuss, learn from your experience, get to know you, or they want to really work for Ajay, which is an amazing place, definitely recommended. How can they find you?
So you can find me on LinkedIn. So if you just search Jenna Niven at RGA, I'll be there. You could find me on Twitter. My Twitter handle is @Jenna Niven. Or you can shoot me an email at jenna.niven@rga.com.
All right, awesome. It's GENNA.
J.
N for November, I for India, V for Victor, E for Echo, N for November.
That's it. That starts with a J.
J. Yeah, okay. J. Jenna Niven. Thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you.
That was a very awesome and rare opportunity for me to discuss with such an amazing creative mind. Take care and speak soon.
Thank you.
Artificial intelligence.